we're live. Cool. Hey guys. So I think the delay today is about the same as always, about 20 seconds. So yeah, let me know if the audio is okay, because I've moved the microphone a bit from where it normally is, so I don't have to shout as much as I normally do to talk. And yeah, I guess we'll get started. So in terms of where it's left off, so this is the groom where it currently stands. We spent 2 hours yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, 2 hours the day before last, making the eyebrows. We did a little bit of changes just to break up this stuff. In terms of what I'll be doing today, I'm going to spend a little bit of time kind of on the back of the head, just because this isn't feeling that good to me. It feels just a bit too chaotic. And other than that, I want to start kind of maybe playing with baby hairs and do some peach fuzz. But we'll kind of play it by ear, really, see what's, just kind of see what comes out and see what happens really as we go. But yeah, if there's any questions as I go, feel free to ask, because one of the reasons I'm doing these streams is to allow people to ask whatever they want. So yeah, I think to start off, I'll play about with the back of the hair, see what works. So to me, what looks wrong about this at the moment is just there's too many square clump ends. That's a bit boring. There's also quite a bit of intersection, mainly here. This section's kind of always been messing with me. I've got a feeling it kind of links into the strays, so I'm going to play about with the noises, see if that helps at all. Maybe it's a case of making the guides longer at the top, because one of the problems this groom has is that the guides towards the top aren't really that different in length, and really for this sort of hairstyle you'd expect the guides at the top of the head to kind of make it most of the way down, because it's kind of bowl cut. I just need to fix this at some point, because it's still feeling pretty featureless, and the strays are a bit too strong. Like, they just kind of, in the spec highlights, just kind of show up, and it makes it feel kind of straw-like in a way. Obviously human strays can do any sorts of shapes, but I find that generally if you've got a stray that's like immediately popping out of the hair surface, it tends not to feel very good. Whereas if you have a hair that kind of like peels out, like it's kind of a soft transition out of the rest of the hair, that will tend to feel a bit nicer. But let's have a play with this first. So, and there's a little thing I want to add to this expression, which is an on-off switch. Easiest way I can think of doing that is by creating $on off. I don't know if I can do a slash, we'll find out. Equals 0, and then let's create a slider between 0 and 1. Apply. So I can't do divide. Alright, cool. Apply. Right, so that's an on-off switch now. So all I'm going to do is just put all of this in a bracket. Let's just extend this out. This is a bit of a hacky, gross way of doing it, but it will work. So, and then just multiply everything by my $on off. Apply. Accept. So if I set this to update automatically, I now have an on-off switch for the noise in our clumps, which is a little bit helpful. That's helping me see kind of, because one tendency that I've got as an artist is adding a bit too much clump noise, because, you know, as anyone who's gone through multiple of these sessions would say, like, one of the things I kind of go on about all the time is adding noise to the clumps, not really the hair as much, but almost to a fault sometimes. Like, my habit is to focus entirely on clump noise, so sometimes, you know, like this isn't perfect, but we're losing something when we add a lot of noise. I don't know if it's a stray percentage. Maybe if I turn off strays, that just still doesn't feel right to me. So let's put that back to 6. And then let's just change the magnitude of the other hairs. See if that helps. Set it to 0. So some hairs get no noise. And that might be enough to get some of that structure back. Increase this back up. that might legitimately not be far off what we need. And then for guides, you'll start to see the problem up here, which is, oh, guide length is a bit inconsistent actually. But yeah, like, yeah, these hairs at the top are barely making it, you know, silhouette wise, top third, maybe just about just shy of top half. We can try bringing that down. Obviously that's going to take a fair bit of time. It's quite a substantial change to the guides. So maybe not put it off, but let's see what else we can do before we do that. That's quite a large change, that will take the most time. Just again, check this. Stray seed is 4, let's try a different seed. I'm going to increase the seed, so this can go to, let's say 20. So does anyone have any questions while I'm doing this, or? It's kind of interesting. Alright, I'm going to keep it with a seed of 8, but then reduce the minimum. This will, like, reducing the minimum but not the maximum will have kind of a two-part effect. One is that it will increase the amount of variation because it's a wider range between the min and max. The other thing it will add is obviously I'm reducing the overall effect because visually what you see really is the average of these two, because that's what it's picking, is taking a random number between these. So if you look at the hair as a whole, what you're getting is halfway between 1.77 and 3.9150. So, you know, changing this makes the whole hair seem like it's getting reduced, but it's just increasing the range, really. That will help settle everything a bit. Let's get on off again. Okay. I'm going to change this guide. Make him a bit longer. I'm also going to hide the lights in the background, just because it's a bit distracting sometimes. Oh, I haven't plugged in my wacom. That'd be helpful. But yeah, something that's important is coming back to the whole thing of my habit is to overuse, like, you know, if I'm not giving myself notes or not getting notes from someone else, and I just kind of let my habits take over, then I tend to use too much stray noise, or too much clump noise, sorry. So kind of an important note to touch on with that is, like, make sure you're always checking your work and trying to call out your faults. Obviously don't focus on them because, you know, self-confidence is not this, or ego as some people, but it is somewhat important. It's good to be confident, obviously not too confident, but do try to keep tab on your habits and if they're actually positive or not. I guess that applies to things outside of art, but something I'm trying to work on a little bit is, like, not just defaulting. I mean, I guess, you know, it can be argued that this character is very similar to a lot of characters I've done before. So that in of itself is not ideal. You know, maybe the next character do. I mean, I'm thinking, because these live streams are a really good motivator for me. And I am finding it's helping keep myself more accountable. But in, like, a positive way, because I enjoy teaching, and this kind of fills that itch in a way that I couldn't get before. It also allows me to produce work, so it's quite like a little beneficial thing for me. So maybe this will be not necessarily long term, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, maybe the next project I do, I'll focus a little bit on doing something that's completely out of comfort zone, maybe a female character, because I'm awful at sculpting female faces. I always tend to make them just look a little bit too masculine. So maybe that'd be something that's fun to do, and I'll just kind of push the style a bit, maybe do something you know, not something so toony. Maybe I'll go back to something I used to do. I used to be obsessed with like the Dishonored art style, but then I guess that's going back into another comfort zone. So play about with it, see what happens. But that's way off yet. But yeah, let's grab this guy. This guy doesn't right. I think I did that intentionally at one point, and now I look at it and I'm like, what was I thinking? I need some more guide work around here. Or this guide is just confusing things a bit by coming up too close. Let's try pulling this one down a little bit. Right, do that. A guide around here. So it looks like there's enough guides here, but like there's the intersection that I've been staring way too long at. As I said in the last stream, like when you add a guide, it's using the same interpolation that the hairs use. So they can be a really helpful debugging tool if you place a guide and notice that that guide is intersecting with other guides, then that's what your hair would be doing. Because ultimately, when you're placing a guide, you're placing a hair. That's all you're doing. Like there's loads of fancy tricks going on, but ultimately what you're doing is saying, if I put a hair exactly here, what's the path I want it to take? So that's something that's kind of helpful to keep in track sometimes is, you know, you can use that to your advantage quite a lot. Turn off lockdown, there we go. There we go. It's a little bit longer. This guide needs a bit of work. Alright. Let's see how it looks. It's starting to look quite a bit better. Still not perfect, but I might, just for the sake of getting on with something new, I might leave that where it is. I'll add another guide around here, just to get that sorted, and then, oh, wrong button. So, let's go right here. Yeah, so that's diving straight in. I'm going to scale that guide up, because I've placed him in an area that kind of bends quite a lot. 0.8. Pull that up a bit. Maybe we can go a bit crazy with this guy. Pull him way out. This might look super weird. It also might not look super weird. It's not like crazy. It's you know, if this is crazy guide work, then I don't know. It's just not. But adding that bit of variation might help. If we hide the guides, yeah, it doesn't really do much. Right. Something else I'm quite tempted to do. I'm not going to do it today because I'm not 100% set on doing it. But I kind of want to increase the length of the hair in this short area, but just towards the top. so it like fades up. So almost like I don't want it to taper into this hair at all. I don't want the lengths to get even closer similar, but one of the big problems with the back of the head is that this area just feels so samey, and there's a lot of reasons for that, like an absolute ton of reasons for that. Let me just increase the exposure. Like there's basically no large breakup. There's clumps, but there's nothing that pulls them apart. The flow is very one directional. The strays are doing some work, but again, as I mentioned earlier, they're very abrupt. Like specular, like looking at a reflection, they're way too abrupt. They just pop out. So it'd be good to get more of like a flow into those, but the actual hair itself definitely needs a lot more work. It also feels surprisingly soft from this angle, but not particularly soft from this angle. And these front sections are just screwed. That's something I've been kind of going on about a lot. So let's set this to 0. And let's check the front again. Front's kind of working out. I think we need more strays on this front clump, because it really doesn't come close to matching what's around it. Also, I think the strays need to be a bit higher frequency, as in like higher frequency noise, not higher frequency as in more strays. So let's quickly do those. So go to the strays for the hair. Oh, I'm already there. And then frequency, let's increase the maximum frequency by, oh, actually, something I could do. Let me grab this guy. I'm not going to use all this, but I'm going to copy a good chunk of it. So on off I don't need, because this is a separate modifier. Percent stray, I need to think of a better name for that. What would that be? What I want is like within the strays to have some extra frizzy, percent frizzy, I guess would actually work. Percent frizzy, frizzy seed, frizzy magnitude, oh, frizzy frequency. Frizzy frequency min, sorry. Frizzy frequency. Right. This needs to be set to 0.6. This one needs to be set to 0.3 as a default. And these guys, let's keep those where they are. They're going to be a bit crazy. And now we just need to get rid of this guy now. I need to get rid of on off, because that's not in use anymore. Get rid of the brackets for that. Frizzy seed, percent frizzy, frizzy frequency min, frizzy frequency max, frequency min, and frequency max. Okay, apply that, and that works. Cool. So now, when I update this, will it automatically update? Let's find out. It is. Cool. Alright, so that's working. Oh, but now I've got the issue of when they're frizzy, the magnitude looks lower. It's not lower, but it feels lower. don't know if I can share this. I don't think I can share this across multiple. I think I need to make it a global expressions float. Here's a percentage. I haven't used this in a very long time, so I don't know if it's going to work. Let's go into oh, not what I want to do. Fuzzy, nope. Alright, I'll have to leave that for now. What I'll do, I'll just make a percentage of them frizzy and leave it there. Not worry too much about counteracting the magnitude yet. Right, so all that does is just make it feel a little bit extra. Like if I set this to 0, so this is exactly what the hair was before, and I can just go in and like it's gonna look like there's less strays, but now there's gonna be some more chaotic ones within the hair. So if we look here, for example, see how there's like, you know, now there's a lot of straight lines, and I add this, let's say 50% for now. We're gonna get a lot more like crossing, which might feel good. It might feel straw-like. We will find out soon. It might get us some really interesting silhouette in some areas, although it might also not. I'm going to reduce that though. Let's say 25%. And these percentages these frequencies might be a bit high, but for now I'm okay with the way they are. And we've got a lot more people playing back right now. So if anyone wants me to explain any of this stuff, just say. I'm happy to do so. Right, so this guide needs a bit of work. Is it a guide that's the problem, or is it the hair? I think I just need to be braver on this. And maybe pull him with it a bit. That's a bit more of a flick. A bit less of an issue with not intersections. I keep using the word intersection when some of it isn't an intersection. So something I need to do as well. I'm going to need to do this like that. Is there a camera-based selection? Ah, there we go. That's better. What I want to do right now is pull like that to get more of that like force shape. This might be super broken now. We'll find out in a second. But I just want more of that kind of bell shape that it had in the sculpt. And let's turn off 3D volumetric fall off. Update the groom. It works on this side. It hasn't really worked on this side. Maybe it has. Maybe it's just the back's not working. But I guess that makes sense because I didn't do the back. I might be undoing that stuff that I just did. We will find out. So, just turn the volumetric falls back on. That's feeling a little bit better. Maybe it's a bit too extreme on the back. We can always fix that later though. Let's just turn off. Yeah, that's way too extreme actually. It's almost like a point. I'm going to and do that, I'll return to that at a different point, but I'll do it properly, where I actually go in and adjust the guides by hand, rather than you know, actually adjusting the guides by hand rather than just doing that kind of bulk selection through the whole set thing. Because that's the lazy way of doing it. In some tools that I've used, that would work quite well, but in XGen, at least with the layout of these guides, which this is where uniformity can become an issue, is because they're uniform. When I select this area, I'm getting like the root of some guides and the middle of some others, and that might not necessarily be what I want. I might just want a top layer that's kind of scooting over and doing an extra bit of height here to like get the actual shape. It's something you'd have to test out. It's not something you can just know every time. You can guess it and I guess be right if you've been doing it a long time, but we'll see. Right. So let's get into adding those strays. So now I'm going to grab this. I'm going to use this in its full as well. So, where is it? So headphone clumps, I need to save a version. Alright, so that's the strays. So let's go into magnitude, paste that in, apply it, accept. So this is going to be crazy probably. Or not. I'm fine with that. I guess in this case this is already a stray noise, because I've got a separate noise for that, so I'm going to need to turn... Oh, I don't want that. I'm going to need to go into magnitude here. And I want to get rid of these guys. And I want to replace this with 0. And that's just because I've masked it to a separate noise. So all this is doing is saying it's generating a random number between 0 and 1 with stray seed up here, set as the seed of the noise, so I can change this and get a different result, but with the same settings. It checks if that is less than the percentage that I've picked divided by 100, so that goes from 0 to 100 to 0 to 1. So now at 50% is 0.5, and obviously this is generating values between 0 and 1. If this is less than, it will apply this noise, which is just a random number between stray magnitude and stray magnitude max, these two. And if it's not greater or smaller, or whichever way around that is, it will apply no noise. And the overall thing is multiplied by an on-off switch, just so I can turn it on and off without having to turn the old modifier. Although again, in this case, having the on-off switch is kind of useless, because it's a modifier. In fact, it's kind of helpful because it's right there. I don't have to go and precisely click this, so I'll keep it for now, but let's just accept that. And so now I can like crank these and increase the number of stray percentage. Let me just get a bit more control. I'm going to also change the background color to black. And I'm going to increase it at the roots. I think that's one of the main issues with this now. So let's set you down to there, you to there. And yeah, that seed just allows me to go in and go, nope. Like just get different shapes, so I can kind of go through these now and be like, oh, actually quite like this hair, for example. So I can just stay on this seed. But if I decide I'm not too if I don't like particular shapes, but I like the general settings, I can just go through the seeds and be like, oh, maybe this one's working, or this one. For individual stray hairs, it doesn't matter as much. For stray clumps, that is incredibly helpful to do sometimes. So I recommend it. Also, I just remember I need to send this to a few people. Where is he? Get off. Oh, I accidentally sent him some code rather than. 1 second, guys. Cool, there we go. So, let's get back to this. Seems a bit more at the roots. Might decrease it towards the tips. Just fine with that. Just so it encourages it to break out quicker. Maybe the frequency needs to go up as well. I'm going to replace that with a slider. What am I doing right now? Right. Equals 0.5, and that's between 0 and 10. Bless me. Add the 0.0, just so it knows to be float. And then all I need to do, because that's declaring a variable, I then just need to use the variable. Frequency. Apply, accept, there we go. I prefer sliders. That is a way too sensitive of a slider. Any value above 5? It doesn't really make a difference. So that's 5. Apply. So we've got a ton of people playing back at the moment, and like 2 people playing, or 3 people now playing live. So I got a feeling people are rewatching the. Oh, that's a bit of a boring shape. People are rewatching the expression section. So again, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm perfectly happy to kind of stop and explain anything if you ask. Obviously, I need to know exactly what you're looking for. But is this the noise doing this, or no? It isn't. That's just a horrible shape. It might be interesting to have this one kind of droop forward a bit more, actually. So it's not like sat back the same way the other one was. It's just a nice way to break symmetry, I guess. Let's drag these forward as well. Needs to turn off the 3D fall off now. It's breaking. I need to fix this manually, because it wouldn't let me undo. I've kind of got myself into a bit of a situation. That's a bit more interesting. Still feels a bit hollow, but I've got a feeling that one is down to noise. That's 2. Yeah, that one's down to noise. So maybe I need some randomization on that to make it a bit less destructive. So it's 2 by default. I do like what 2 does though for a lot of it, so I'm going to have to let's go 1 to 3, so it looks mostly the same. 0 to 2. 0 to 4 maybe? Nah, that's too destructive. I kinda... not too sure on this one. I think I'll leave it with this for now. Maybe we decrease that a little bit. That'll do for now. And then let's go back into that stray noise. I just want to increase the magnitude a little bit. Maybe increase the correlation. 100 is way too much. I don't know why I put 100 by default. Kinda works. $A equals 20 100 and call $A. Oh. Copy paste this. Again, I prefer shaders. So not prefer shaders. But you can probably set to a slider, right? We set to slider, yeah. Well, I've already got it set now, so no point. I think these shapes are a bit nicer. So now, which grooms does I need to do? So I've got 3 grooms that I need to do. I'm not doing eyelashes for this guy, so I need to do a baby hair groom to kind of break up this hairline a little bit. I can do that also with strays, but I want to add a separate baby hair groom just for more fine control. I need to do a peach fuzz, which I'm going to use groomable splines for, which I've not used since I really started grooming, because I didn't start grooming like properly until about 2016. And obviously done it professionally for most of the time between now and then, but like obviously as a professional I don't really use XGen that much. So groomable splines is something that I need to learn pretty much from scratch. So that'll be a bit of fun. Probably be the most revealing look into what it's like learning a new tool, I guess. And the other groom I need to do is the stray clumps, which is going to be driven entirely by coats, but I want to leave that one until I'm basically done with the rest of the groom. The reason I want to leave it until I'm basically done with the rest is because the frequency at which I set the strays for this guy will kind of influence that a bit, because obviously this is naturally more chaotic than the sculpt, because it's procedural and it has strays, whereas sculpts can't really do that in the same way. Yeah. Oh, I got a new subscriber. Cool. Thanks, Marcelli. So we got. Ooh. I set that to 1 because I'm using a stray percent. Ah, right, okay. I wonder why it was not working correctly. I wonder why the numbers look so low. So now that I've got a percent stray here, I had a mask that was using the description set stray percentage. So that was stacking them. So I had 10%, and I had this set to 40. So this needs to be set to 4 to get around the same number. It feels a bit low, so I'm going to increase that now. That's obviously going to change the seed quite a lot, just because it was 2 numbers multiplied before. Yeah. kind of like this. I mean, it's fundamentally not good, but I kind of dig it. Oh, that's not what I want though. Just the seed was giving me. But that's really what my baby hairs are for, so I'm gonna change that. Oh, wrong number. Make this visible again, just for a bit of context. I do value context quite a lot when I'm grooming. As much as obviously having this background doesn't, strictly speaking, help in any way, and in some ways it distracts, it just, like, mentally for me, it kind of helps me work. Like, having more information as to, like, which way I'm facing, what the lighting conditions will be, and all that sort of stuff. Like, obviously I'm not conscious of thinking, oh, the light's coming from this direction, so I'll change my strays, but I don't know, for me it's a little like idiosyncrasy of how I work, is I like to have this little things in place. So normally when I'm working, I do a lot to make my previews nice. I don't tend to add shadows and like there's the setup that Tarkan Sareem does. I don't know if he ever posted it that publicly. Which, by the way, quick side note, Tarkan Sareem is a groomer. I think he's at Scanline now. But his Gumroad tutorial on guide work is still, it's obviously dated because it's like, I think it's 4 years old now, but for a lot of groomers, it's kind of one of those kind of keystone tutorials. It might be worth checking out. It's pretty cheap as well, if I remember correctly, like 8 quid, 14 quid maybe. It's not the most in-depth, like it was supposed to be a full series and it never got turned into a series. But what he did do was pretty decent. I quite liked it a lot. I quite liked it a lot, doesn't make sense as a sentence. But yeah, so, check that out. But what was I saying? Yeah, like his setup, so like previews, he does like a crazy, like well, it's not that crazy, but it's really cool. So he gets a spotlight, parents it within a group and a name constraint to the camera, so that it always, holds the same angle relative to the camera. And that means that he's got like amazing, I won't have anything. So if I turn on lighting, you get nothing. But he has like, shadows in a certain direction. It's quite intensive on, I think, GPU. But it is kind of helpful to have some of that sometimes. But for me, I've always preferred just having the, not flat lighting, but the kind of basic lighting that comes with Maya. To find, I mean, Next Gen's preview is one of the best, but I'm extra rambly today. But yeah. Got 20 people watching at the moment. 4 live, 16 playing back. Unless I don't know how playbacks is. Maybe that's just people who have gone back to check parts of the video. I don't really know how it works. More than likely it's less. It's the 4 people who are currently watching, not the playbacks. Yeah, anyway, right. Let's go on with a new groom. So I've got the scalp in here somewhere. So I can use that. It's not really ideal because it's so far back. I could use the head because I'm not using Udemy. So I mean, strictly speaking, I tend to use sculpts just because it's quite light and it does simplify the pipeline in some ways. And that if you're free to make UV and topology changes to your mesh because you're not changing the mesh, and then for the rig you can just wrap deform the scalp to the head so that it's still deforming, so XGen registers it. Which, side note, XGen doesn't register parent transformations. So if you group something, or you literally just grab an object and move it, XGen won't register that it's moved. It doesn't care about what's in the attribute editor or the channel box with the transforms. It doesn't give a shit. That's one of the reasons I like to use scalps anyway. But in the case of this, where I had quite a lot of oversight to go into this, I kind of rushed in the setup of the model for the groom before I started the live streams, because I haven't done a personal project in a while now. But anyway, yeah, so really I should have extended this way forward, maybe even to like here. Maybe this should have even been one scalp, like the whole thing, so there's no gap between these two, but I didn't do that sadly, so I'm going to have to kind of contend with this. Or I can make a separate scalp for the baby hairs, but that sounds like a bad idea. And obviously adding peach fuzz later, I'm going to have to use the head, or create a scalp for the whole head, which is kind of redundant, especially since this isn't going through pipeline anyway. For now, I'm going to try using this scalp and just see if it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not the end of the world. I can always redo it. So let's create a new groom, and we're going to call it fur baby hair. Fur baby hair 01. Description. Placing and shaping guides, because that's how I like to groom. Splines, random, cool. So then I'm going to set this to not turn on. And I'm going to find some reference of baby hair. Baby hair. Most of the results are more than likely going to be like mostly black women. It's kind of cool. This is quite a common. Well, I don't know if it's common, but it's something that you see a lot more on this sort of ref. It's kind of cool, but it's obviously not what I'm looking for, and literal babies isn't what I'm looking for either. What I'm looking for is like the fuzzy, like very light, thin hair at the roots. So you got some hair, like it's not these long strays. You've got like these. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in stream. They're just super thin hairs that are really quite short. I don't know what they exist for, to be honest. Maybe this one's kind of helpful. So again, like, yeah, this isn't exactly what I'm going for, but it's just like this layer of shorter and thinner hairs that sits towards the front. This stuff is really cool. This would be a nightmare to groom, but it looks quite interesting. I'm gonna see if I can find an exact reference. This kid's got cool hair. That's literal baby hair. Not too interested in that. Where's that reference I had earlier? That's probably the best thing that I get. Where's that little kid? Can't remember how high up it was. That's a bit of an issue. Baby hair in hair is crazy. Kind of clumpy as well. Oh, I've gone past it. Where is it? Oh, it's her, isn't it? Okay. So, let's get this onto the other screen again. View image in open image tab. Cool. So I'm going to do mine a little bit curlier than what we just saw. No guides, cool. So I'm just going to add a small row of guides. Just do something like this. I also need to hide fur hair short. Not fur hair short. You can be shown. Fur hair front clumps, so I can actually see what I'm doing. Because I'm not going to go the whole way around because it's kind of pointless. Also, in a way, that's kind of interesting looking. Maybe later on, if the scalp's giving me a lot of issues, I can pull back front clumps and rely more on this. Also, if you want to check that your layering is working, this sort of situation is a good way to check, because you can see how these hairs are all kind of following each other. Feels like a volume with brush strokes for it. That means your layering, generally speaking, is doing okay. This area is a bit more messy, but that's also seemingly more down to the clumps than the actual guide work. Anyway, so I'm going to add a bunch of guides going along the front. That is not what I want. Let's go back to baby hair. up there, up there. I'm going to go all the way into the hair, but I'm not going to go further. So like this. That'll do. And baby hair tends to be super chaotic as well. In fact, generally speaking, there's two ways of going about it. You can either do crazy guides or super simple guides with a crazy noise. It's not going to be high frequency because literally you just want basic directional change. You don't want anything too crazy. You don't want frizz. I mean, you can get frizzy baby hairs, especially with like afro hair. You'll get a lot of frizzy baby hairs. But nah, what am I thinking? Short hair, there we go. No, I keep doing that. Front clumps, but eventually. Alright, so back to baby hair. I'm also going to make the guides thinner, just because the hairs are going to be super thin, so it makes sense for the guides to visually be a bit thinner. Again, it comes down to kind of mentally how you like to work. I like to have my guides at least somewhat represent, so if the hair is going to be super thin, I like to have the guides be a lot more thin. That just helps me visually kind of understand what the impact is going to be. So all I'm going to do now is, I genuinely don't care how these look right now. I just want to get something. That's something that's important in a lot of artistic fields, is sometimes I could spend a bunch of time now like trying to get the perfect guide, but because this is going to be a chaotic groom, it's best to do something just so you can correct it. Like there was I really don't have a source for this, but I remember there was a quote that apparently was some kind of art director or game designer or something, and supposedly a intern or someone along those lines kind of spent hours not doing anything because they were terrified of putting something down, and supposedly the quote was just do something so I can tell you how to fix it. Like, supervisors, they don't care if supervisors or yourself shouldn't care if your first attempt doesn't work, because chances are your first attempt will suck. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, your first attempt will probably suck. I'm going to do that. I might have to make these longer. I'm just going to X-Gen. He's not able to show yet. Oh, density needs to go way up. Cool. Some lovely little worms sat in his hairline. Right, so width 0.1. Actually, that's going to be, because these are baby hairs, so I need to go down a lot more. Yes, these are thinner than the rest of the hairs. I'm also going to add a ton of taper, not to one. Then I need to turn off tube shade. I need to assign the shader. So let's go in there. Got baby hair, assign my hair tube shader. I need to increase this density. Add another 0 there. So now I need to go in and fix the mask. So render geo, I want to hide. Xgen, I don't want to show the guide work. Oh, I will show the guide work. And then it's going to create a mask. That's not what I want. Baby hair. 01 mask. Set black. Set this quite high because this is quite fine groom. Set this to value of 1. A texture file. Why can't I paint? Alright, cool. Don't know why that wasn't working. So I'm not going to worry too much about lining this up perfectly, because we're not going to see him with his hair moving at all. So I'm just going to fill in this whole area. But strictly speaking, you would want to have it be a bit more precise to the hairline. Have it line up with the actual, this hair, really. Also, something I might want to do is add a layer of guides behind this that are way longer and kind of follow the actual hair. Annoyingly, I can't convert guides to NURBS guides, otherwise I'd literally just grab the guides from this, but for some reason my utilities tab isn't working, which is super annoying. I'm making this unnecessarily hard for myself by showing the groom while I work. Something like that. Cool. So let's get that saved. And updated. So let's hide front clumps. Yeah, that's working. Cool. Show front clumps again. Baby hair. And I think I went the wrong way with having these aimed down. I think it would be fun to have them kind of come up and then have the noise pull some of them down. So let's go in, show this, hide these, go to the sculpt guides tool, pull these up. I think I should have the hairs longer really as well. We will be adding some clumping, although I am going to do a percentage that don't clump, and it'll be a very low percentage that actually do clump, I think. So let's just curl these. I'm going to scale all these. I want them to be a bit longer. Something like that. Just to see how it's going. So there. That's getting there. In fact, that might be enough for these guides to work as a base. I'm going to upsample these a bit. So let's just rebuild those to 7, maybe 8. So we can get some more fine curl in there. Yeah, this sort of like S shape. We will be breaking that with the noise, but I don't really care. I just want to have some in there as a baseline so that every hair is guaranteed to have some level of curl. We can go in as well and add like a spiral, I guess. So if I just pull that up, pull that out. Maybe 7 wasn't enough, but let's see how that works. Cool. Then going to modifiers, I'm going to add a cut for now. I'm going to set this to be super strong, so it's 6 maybe, or 0.6 even. I'm going to add a noise, which is going to be, again, relatively speaking, super strong. So let me just go in and grab the noise from the hair. No, it's in the clumping. Baby hair. Really should just save this. It'll save me a lot of time in the long run. Okay. And for the frequency, I can't remember which way it's going to have to go. I'm going to have to set this update automatically. Frequency, let's just do $A equals 3 and set that between 0 and 10, and then just call $A, apply, okay. Just a bit quicker. I'm going to also increase the modifier CV count. I'm going to go quite high just because it's baby hair, so it's not very many of them. We can get away with having a higher count. And any questions so far? There's only a couple of you guys here, but chat's super quiet today, and it tends to help. If any of you have any questions, it does tend to help me kind of aim it towards what will help you best, so please do ask. I had to do the 0.0 thing. for the sake of testing, so only one of them has to have a point, okay. I think for OCD, I'm gonna add 0.0. Right. I think magnitude needs to go way higher. Some of them can be crazy. Not necessarily realistic, but is necessarily something fun to play about with. And because they are thinner hairs, they won't really have much of an effect on the final render, so this is genuinely probably good enough for this character. They are just super subtle. It's literally just to break up this line so we get little things done across it. We should also have some thickness at the roots. Let me just test something quickly. So this isn't something that's strictly realistic, but if you decrease the width at the root, that tends to help it fade into the head a bit more. So if we find that the line is too harsh, we can hack it with this. That isn't a good way to do it. Well, it is a good way to do it, but it's not a realistic way to do it. So if you're doing VFX and it's not fading correctly, it's your density. It's not an issue with, well, it's a combination of width and density. But having the root be thinner doesn't really make much sense. I mean, I'm sure it can happen, but it shouldn't really. For an animated character, it's fine. Do I like that, though, is the question. I do quite like that, actually. You can see the effect that has. Like, if I crank that all the way down, like, the hair just fades in super slow. You never want zero width, though, so we'll see if renders call for it later. Although I am really tempted to just add it in. You know, this is an animated character. I'm going to keep it in. There's a small amount of width at the base, and that is a value of 0.5. But no, I'm going to round it up. Let's go with 0.6. And you are at a value of 0.1, just to make it easy to replicate. So I'm going to go to different grooms now. I'm not going to do it to side groom because it's already a bit too thin. Although, again, I probably should. Yeah, let's do it to all the grooms. So set you to 0.5. And add one here at 0.1. Well, I should copy this. Is there a way to... No, there isn't. Front pumps is done. For hair. 8.5. Oh no, it's 0.6, isn't that? I need to go back to side groom. Cool. Oh, this stream's been going an hour already. Don't like this stray. Really don't like him. So for hair, modifiers, top 2, noise, seed. So 8 is a current seed. Are there any on 6? It's like barely any strays on 6. It's like this guy here, him there. Kind of like that actually, because it is super subtle now. Like they're still in there, they're just going side to side. They're not coming out as much. I'm gonna remember 6. We get a few of them. Send strays set to 6. Yeah, it's super subtle. Kind of like it. Let's increase the percentage a little bit. But the seed is doing quite good stuff. Hate this one though. So let's tweak him. Don't like him either. Alright, let's set back to the number it was. 5? Nope. This is why having seeds is quite helpful, because I like the general settings, I just don't like how some of the strays work. he would normally really annoy me, but I actually kind of like where he is. No, I don't like that. So I'm going to add some clump. What's clump variance do? Negative values decrease the effect of positive. So it's from -1 to 1. So if I set that to 1. That just randomizing which ones it goes to. Weird. Not entirely sure what I was doing. I'm not going to use it if I don't know what I was doing, just because I want to be able to control it later. I want to know where things are coming from. Let's see if clump volumizer is doing much visually. I actually prefer it without it. Looking at like this clump here, without it, it's a bit more spread. With it, it's a bit more pulled together. I guess that's just strays interacting actually, so it's not really doing that. Okay, let's go to for her short. Go up to for hair, height to groom. I'm going to increase the length at the top, mainly at the back. Do something like that. I don't know what it'll do. It says update preview automatically, but it's not updating automatically. Prefer that. Really not having a good relationship with these strays. I think I need to reduce the maximum noise. That will help. Now let's go back to so the stray seed we had earlier was 8. Yeah, it works. Alright. So I feel like, in terms of the flow at the top, something that I'm quite tempted to add an element of is like an overall twist. So you got the hairs, that's really big. You got hairs like doing red. You got hairs that doing the no. Alright, cool. So we got hairs that kind of doing this, but it'd be nice to see if we could kind of get like a little bit of a, not a corkscrew, but it'd be nice to get like the hairs slowly twisting around into the point. So I'm going to try that. Annoyingly, I can't draw it. So this one's kind of got it going. We just need to do it more. Something like that. We're going to have to fix some guys after this. 100%. And pull him. Adds a little something. And some more intersections again. So it adds intersections too, but I need another guide in that area. Or why can't I do anything? Or we can pull this guide with them rather than add a new guide. And that means there's less interpolation to do. So this guide needs thinning out. So apparently my YouTube chat isn't working. So I've just posted some stuff into chat. If you guys can see it, well, I guess there's no way you can let me know. That's not ideal. Okay. Not ideal at all. 0.8. Having a few extra issues on the stream. It's always fun. If anyone has any questions and they happen to have me on Facebook, just drop me a little message, and I'll mention it on the stream. Obviously, not necessarily everyone viewing will have me on Facebook, but I feel a majority of you will. So if you do have me on Facebook and you have any questions, just drop me a little message on there. I'll read it out so other people can hear what it is. Also, Francisco, thank you for pointing out that there might be issues with the chat. And if you guys are able to see, in fact, actually, Francisco, so you say you suspect there might be issues with the chat. Are people able to type, but I'm not seeing it? Because currently on my screen, I can't see the chat. There's literally nothing there. I'm going to try refreshing the live stream, actually. Oh, there we go. Okay, so right, I just refreshed my stream on my screen and saw that. So that is a bunch of messages. So I get back, put it in 1 or 2 times speed. Yep. Okay. Got to go for it. Okay. Yeah, Andy will be back at some point, I guess. Thinking. So, what if you really need to make more hairs beyond the scalp limits? So strictly speaking, so Francisco, in response to your first question, the one about scalp limits, if you really need to extend it and you need the grooms to blend, I recommend just kind of biting the bullet and extending the scalp. I mean, strictly speaking, you should plan it out before. The reason that I didn't is because, frankly, I didn't really care that much about it. So I certainly wasn't expecting the live streaming to be much of a success. I was expecting maybe one person would watch it, which would be my mum, and then it kind of die there. I wasn't expecting it to turn into something. You know, I've spent about 8 hours grooming him now, so I spent a full day, or like a work day, grooming this guy at this point. If I knew I was going to like kind of maintain a groom, I would have planned out every groom and really thought about what do I need. It's better to be overcautious and have too much scalp than it is to be not cautious enough and have basically no scalp. So yeah, that, in response to your first question, I hope that kind of makes sense. Just use a bigger scalp. And Rima, thanks for messaging as well. So yeah, I can see it now. I had to refresh the chat. So literally just like hit F5 on my internet. Right, so now that I actually do have a working chat, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Right, okay, so I'm seeing a bit of an issue here. I also need to change the straight. In fact, yeah, I'm going to change the straights in the back of the head. Because they're not working for me. So I'm going to set you to 1, and I'm going to change magnitude. Send stray, reduce that all the way down. And this guy set to round. Oh, there we go. So I need to set these numbers a lot lower. So I'm going to get rid of these because this is my strays. Strays nice. So that's a 0. Apply. and then everything else is fine. So, and I didn't update those, so I need these to go to like 3 max. This is a shorter groom. Apply accept. I'm going to set straight magnitude minimum to be basically 0, not exactly 0, but very, very low. And then frequency, I'm going to add the $A. In fact, actually, cancel. I'm going to test that set a slider. And does that give me, perfect. That types out exactly what I did. So I'm going to set that from 0 to, let's say, 4.0. Bit more interesting. You can set a random amount of frequency as well. A multiplied by rand 0 to 2. So basically, because of the way this is working now, is it's going to take whatever number this is, which is not correct, 0.0 to 3.0, comma, apply, accept. So what this is going to do is it's going to get the number that I put in, and it's going to multiply it to 0 to 2. So if this is like 0.1, the range is going to be 0 to 0.2. If I set this to 1, the range will be 0 to 2. If I set this to 0.5, the range will be 0 to 1. So it's always going to, relatively speaking, it will add up to double in the randomization. It's literally just a multiply. I could add a random range slider, which would be 1 minus random range and 1 plus random range, which actually I'm going to add that. So range equals, I'm going to set that to 0.5, and I'm going to set that to be 0 to 2.0. Keep doing the point thing. So then what this is going to be is 1 minus rand range to 1 plus rand range. Apply, accept. So now I have a random range. I need to rename that. And then let's get this. So setting this to 2. I need to go this to 1 actually. Right. So setting this to 1 basically means that it will be up to double and down to 0, because it's 1 minus 1 and 1 plus 1, so 0 and 2. If I set this to 0.5, the range will be 1 minus 0.5, so 0.5 to 1 plus 0.5, which is 0.5. 0.25 will be 0.75 and 1.25. So that just means that it will average around 1 no matter what I do. The average of these two values will be 1, which means that the overall effect is similar to this, but it just allows me to change the amount of variation with one slider. Rather than having to enter two different numbers and move them around, I can just move this one slider. And obviously, as I increase this frequency, the amount of variation it can get will increase. But that might be what we want, and then I'm just going to have to go in and do that to get a softer transition out of the hair. Maybe something like that. Obviously some hairs will just jut straight out, but now some more of them will blend in. So I think it's time. This is kind of been a session of like little incremental improvements. Like there's not going to be a big difference between the renders of today's and and Sunday's, but it doesn't need to be full progress every day. Just going to smooth this out. I could just do that with a smooth blend mode as well. In fact, I'm going to do that. Can I set you to spline? Smooth. What do I prefer? Flat, definitely not. I think smooth will do for now. And I'm going to multiply this is getting pretty gross now, but I'm going to multiply this by C length. In fact, actually, do I care that much? Yeah, I do care. Okay, so multiply that by $C length. Okay, so I'm going to have to set these way higher now. So now the hairs at the top that are longer will get more strength in the strays. I could do the same thing with the frequency, but I'd rather not, to be honest. Right. That'll do. Until I render this, I don't really know what's going on. Nah, not too keen on that. A bit more subtle, but then let's do a rand between 0.5 and 1.5. Maybe let's increase that just a little bit. Most of the work in the back still needs to be guide work, to be honest, but I don't fancy changing these yet. Although I do need to change the width of these, because preview-wise they're a bit of a nightmare. Cool, that's all of them. So let's take this to 0.5. There we go. The shorter guides are, the thinner they have to be, really, for it to not just be a cube. Let me just... oh, that one's working. And close this guy. So I'm just minimizing these a little bit, so I can see all of them at the same time. So Right, next thing. So which other grooms were there to do? I've got a baby hair now, so it's still stray clumps, but that needs to be the last one. So either I work on the grooms we already have, or I start with baby hair. And not baby hair, the peach fuzz. Peach fuzz is going to be a bit of a weird one because I've been talking about the importance of scalps, but for baby hair, having a scalp doesn't really make much sense. So I'm going to have to add it directly to the head geo. I'm going to save the variation. Also, I have to set up a new shader for it so that it works. Is there a healthy limit for the quantity of descriptions you add to a single scalp? Technically, no. Let me just think of how to answer that for a sec. So, strictly speaking, there isn't like a healthy limit. Obviously, it's just whatever your computer can handle. In terms of like beyond the technicality, like artistically, how many you should split. So, the more times you split a groom, the harder it will be to blend, and the harder it is to manage the overall kind of sameness. So what I mean by that is if you have like 100 different grooms, making sure the noise feels the same and that the clumping feels similar in all of them is going to be really difficult. So, you know, that's kind of a case against splitting grooms. But splitting grooms does give you more control. It allows you to change how the strays look per area, which in some ways is a detriment, but in the case of my front clumps, I needed that. I couldn't have the same settings between this groom and this groom because the strays that I quite like on this, the clump strays I mean, would not work on this guy, or at least not in the same way. I need the control over this. So I'm able to get the clumps I like on this guy without affecting this, and I can kind of get them both to look good in their own right, which I've not done yet, but we'll get there eventually. But, I mean, in terms of, like, most of the grooms I do, the head hair will be, like, 1 or 2, normally. There has been a groom that I've done, and I can't name show, I can't name the asset, but it was... I don't even going to say what type of thing it was, but it had, I think it was 21 separate grooms for the head. There was a good reason for that. It wasn't a normal hairstyle by any means. But, you know, that's 20 separate grooms. All had to be managed individually. And it was intense. In the case of that groom, I needed to. I had no real choice. It's just the amount of variety and shapes that were going on was just way too much to handle. And doing that in one groom would have required way too much map work. And sometimes splitting a groom is the quickest way. Also gives you more control in tech anim. Like when you want to simulate hair, if you've got grooms separate, then you can simulate them with different properties and blah 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 blah. You can do whatever you want basically. So if you want certain clumps to hold their shape, you have that control. Obviously you have that control anyway, but the setup is easier sometimes. So you can keep splitting grooms, but the way I like to think of it is the hair unique in any special way? So, you know, obviously we've got these clumps at the front which are unique in that they pull away from the rest of the hair and they need to be an directly controlled shape. Like I needed to, well I didn't need to, but I wanted to match the sculpt, whereas for this it wasn't as important. I wasn't matching exact shapes, I was matching a silhouette. So it makes sense to have more control over these guys than this, so I can split these. But, you know, I could split left and right. I didn't want to though, and the reason I didn't want to split left and right is because I want to be able to blend between them. So like what I've done back here, that would be really hard with separate grooms. But then obviously I've got the front here. This could be split left and right with absolutely no issues with them doing the same work twice because they both look very similar, and just having a region map is simple enough. I hope that kind of makes some sense. But yeah, like I generally favour less grooms normally. But obviously, I mean, feather grooms tend to be horrifically split. Like you split feather grooms a lot to have full control over those, but you don't really have a choice. Feather grooms, if you want to match something photorealistically and you've got one groom, it's not really going to work unless you've done some really mad setup. I think Yeti would probably allow it, but most groom systems would require a lot of splitting. X-Gen and feathers don't go together though, so don't ask about feathers and X-Gen if you want to, because I'm not going to go into that. Mainly because it doesn't really have a feather system. It's hacky as fuck to actually do one. But yeah, so let's save again. I'm going to do a what's the word? I'm going to do a peach fuzz groom. I'm going to focus it on the ears and the cheeks. Maybe a little bit around the eyebrows. I don't know yet. I'll figure that out. I'm going to try groomable spines as well, so that however much remains of this stream, which is probably about half hour, because I want to kind of do another few things before I go to bed, it will probably be a bit of a disaster because I haven't touched groomable spines in a long time. So let's quit bitching and kind of see how it goes, I guess. So I'm going to save a version just so I've got a backup. Because whenever you go into something you don't know, it's wise to save a setup. Okay, so let's grab the head, descriptions, create description for peach fuzz 01, description, Dragon Boy collection, groomable splines, randomly cross surface using groom tools. Right, I can't remember how this will go. Right, so I need to make a separate preview shader for this as well. So let's make that first. Tube shade, and I'm just going to create a hair tube shader. Hair tube shader. And what was the name of this guy that I made? Hair preview matte. So I'm going to call this. What should I call this one? And I want it to be kept together, so I'm going to call it hair fuzz preview matte. Okay. I need to assign that as well. So let's get the for peach fuzz. Assign the hair that, and then let's go into the attribute editor, list, autoload. Oh, side note, that's kind of helpful. List autoload means that you can select whatever objects you want now, and the attribute editor won't change. So I can go about, I can, I mean, I can't grab anything because everything's locked, but I can select stuff and still have control of my shader, so I don't have to keep tracking it down and finding it. I find that's quite a helpful thing to have. But yeah, so I'm just going to make a fuzz. So for that, I'm going to set this to pretty light. I'm going to set this to be super white. I'm going to set the specular power, was it? To be super diffused. And then it's just about getting the transparency might help a bit. So it's just getting reflections. That will do. This is definitely too much though. Let's do something like that. Does tint diffuse black help? No, it does not. Something like that. So, peach fuzz. What do we know about peach fuzz? It's been a while since I did a peach fuzz groom in depth, so I'm going to struggle with this one, I think. So let's set that to 10 for now. I'm going to set this to update preview automatically. Modifier CV count can stay pretty low. Attribute CV count, I'm not entirely sure what that does. Set numbers, each spline has under attribute control. I'm going to set that to 4. So we get smoother control. I need to reduce the width, which is a map. Not too keen on that, to be honest. Taper I'm going to increase pretty high. I'm not going to add a taper start really. So taper start, if you don't know, it's just setting where the taper starts occurring. So if we look at these hairs on the nose, set this to 0, it's like a smooth gradient from root tip. So if I set this to all the way to 1, and as I increase this, it's just offsetting where that taper starts and kind of the name of it. If you want a hair to feel super thin, having a taper start doesn't really make much sense. I need to turn off only parameters in view. Okay, I am going to mask off the top of the head. There's no point growing peach fuzz inside the head itself. And am I able? See, I don't actually know how to groom in here. Like, where's the brush tools? Ah, there they are. So how do I add new ones? Can I? Density, there we go. Right, so that's too much. Oh, is the density of the controls linked? Oh, that's dumb. Why would you want those linked? Okay, so the density of these control curves seems to change the density of the actual curves, which is sync. No, I don't want that. Okay, so there we go. Why is that one by default? Okay. So let's go into, I don't know if adding a density later will increase this. So I'm going to set that to like 20, which is a pretty high number. And let's just go in with, I think, Orient was the one we supposed to use. I'm definitely going to need to kill the update preview automatically. And can I mirror this? Mask, don't care about that. Region, don't care about that. Part, attract. So I just need to learn how this works. Right, okay, so that mirrors it. Don't know how it does it, but it mirrors it. So I'm going to work on this side. So let's get this working. Well, straight again, I should sort out the length first. So this needs to be higher in here as well. I'll figure it out in a sec. Just pull all this. So in this pose brush, orientation. Below here I'm going to do some like curly stuff to make it interesting, but for now I'm going to do like a super generic, like just away from the face kind of flow. Which one was it again? That one, cool. Can I increase this and will it interpolate? It does not. Right, okay, so I have to pick a value. Oh, that's annoying because I need a lot in here. Let's go with 50. The reason I need a lot in here is because the flow changes quite rapidly in this area. You tend to find is like a, at least in a lot of the grooms I've done over time, is like a little bit of a spiral away from this area. So this might not even be enough. But I don't want to go denser. I might have to. You know what? I'll bite the bullet. I'll need to change the length and all that stuff. So let's set length. Where's the value? Goal length. Okay, so 0.2. What values am I playing with here? Is 0.2 the default length, or am I doing nothing right now? Or does increment need to be a negative number if it's going down? Oh god. Why would you want that? Okay, I'm going to set the length now. Wrong way. What's left? Can I move this? No, I can't. Okay, I just need to remember flip to left. Right. So let's go on with the Orient. Let's just brush that away from the face. And this away from the eyes. Hello. got a bit of an intersection problem here, so I'm going to have to figure out how we lift that.
He looks like a werewolf.
Thanks. I mean, he's not, but... Having so many problems with this guy.
Why?
Earlier on the chat wasn't working, like, at all.
Oh.
So I was talking and they were sending me messages and I wasn't seeing them. I don't actually know how to stand these back up. Because I'm currently grooming in groomable spines, which is like one of the older tools.
Yeah.
And I've not used it.
In a long time.
Possibly ever. I think I used it once. Oh, elevation, there we go. So I can just set that. There we go. Right, okay, so I'm going to orient everything first.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's something that I've never really used because I don't do creature grooming really. Like, obviously professionally I've done a lot of creature grooming, but like as an X-Gen guy, I haven't really done much. You don't have to whisper that, I'm fine. The stream can cringe if they wish. Yeah, it's like opening up groomable spines. I'm literally just having to figure things out as I go, which isn't really an ideal way to stream, because if you're gonna show your incompetence, that's the way to do it. Let's flip to left. Do not like that. And I'm gonna need to elevation that up in a sec. Flip to left. So I need to kind of push these up in some areas. And then let's just fix his elevation now. So that little moustache he's got going. I'm surprised the mirroring is working, because as far as I'm aware, his UVs aren't symmetrical, so it must be doing it on world space, which is kind of impressive. Length is going to need to go way down on these guys, so length, increment -1. I need to set the goal length to be like 0.05 maybe. I'm going to set this to be minus 0.1. I hate that though. It should just be an opacity. You shouldn't have to set plus minus. So around the eyes I'm going to need to really paint down the density and length, get that to work. Let's see how the hair's looking for now. Oh yeah, the width, forgot about that. What is the width? Map. Where's it being driven? Width, there we go. So, goal width is 0.05. Oh, 0.005 even. And increment needs to be negative. I hate that so much. For some reason, rather than just doing opacity, like any sane developer would, they yeah, rather than opacity they added like an increment, but if you want to go down you have to set a negative increment.
That's weird.
And that makes me so upset. Is there a flood anywhere? No. There's a ply outside. Maybe that's like a flood type thing. For some reason this isn't flipping. Needs to go even lower. Right, okay, rather than using the width map, can I comment that out? Yes, I can. Right, cool. I'm just going to set this to be 0.02. 0.002? So let's try increasing that density a bit. Let's go 40. That's the transparency kicking in, isn't it? Where is he? There he is. It isn't the transparency kicking in. Xgen. Actually, let's lock this so I can keep going back to it. Xgen, let's go into modifiers. Let's add some cutoff. So that's like 6. Might be a bit strong, but we'll see. Is it doing the delete thing again? I think it is doing the delete thing again.
You're doing the delete thing again.
Thanks. Right, okay.
Take what? It's a massive
Correlation, let's set that to like 100% and see what it does. And set it to date previous laterally. So I need to paint out. Let's go into the hair. Show the guides but not the hair. Do the same for you. And do the same for the front clumps. Okay, and then go into not baby hair, peach fuzz. And add a fur peach fuzz 01 mask. Let's default it to white. So he doesn't have a Lambda on him. So what's the name of the thing he's got attached? Because I need to find out what this is. Channel box editor, not channel box, sorry. Head mat. Alright, cool, that's easy enough to remember. Number 1. Okay, so let's try that again. There we go. Let's set this to black. Cool. Let's paint him in place. So I don't really want to be too precise with this. I just want something there. I also need to turn off brush pressure again. Is it still on? No? Stroke. So I'm still getting a soft fall off. This is some kind of visual glitch.
Oh my god.
What's up?
There's a High School Musical reunion in the works.
High School Musical reunion.
Yeah. Like
So
not the
2020 is
Disney
already an awful year.
Plus. Shut up.
Like, can they not?
Can you not?
Oh, do you like High School Musical?
Yeah.
I'm sorry it has to end this way. Move out.
You make it look good.
What's that?
Wow, that did not bake well.
What didn't bake well? I like bake wells.
Like this? What the fuck?
What is it you're trying to bake?
Oh, well, it's something for the turn-off, but it's like... It just broke.
In substance? The baker in substance?
Yeah. No, it's weird. I gotta see that.
Save textures. Close that. So I don't need to make any more maps. So I can assign head and tail back onto him.
That's so janky.
What the frick?
Yeah, like the whole thing's broke.
Why is the head map? There we go. So now let's go back in. Right. I'm almost tempted just to render with this peach fuzz and see how it looks. It will be too long and too wide probably.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the neck needs grooming. I haven't done the neck yet. So orient. No, smaller brush, please. I got away with that, luckily. Can you like not? Why isn't there a elevation setting on the orient brush? I really don't like removal splines. It's not a bad system. It's just not particularly friendly. Oh wow. I just got an email from Steam saying Fallout 76 is now available. Thanks Steam. Very helpful information there. Hasn't it been like available since November on Steam? November 3 years ago. Is it groom based on screen space? No, groom is based on surface. It's my little dinosaur. I'm not dinosaur. Why did I say dinosaur? Let's go into elevation. Just make sure that nothing's clipping. And update the groom. So width needs to go down. So I'm going to set that to 1.5. 0.01. Well, isn't that the width of the regular hair? That's 5 times less than the actual hair. That sounds about right. Not necessarily accurate, but I don't care. You know what, we can see how this works. The nose is problematic, but we can fix that. And the eyes are going to be an issue as well. I need to paint the density away from the eyes. But we'll get to that at another point. For now, let's get a render set up, because I'm going to call the stream off in a couple of minutes. It's already been almost 2 hours. I think 2 hours is a pretty healthy amount of time. Now you mentioned Steam. What about real-time grooming? It's totally different stuff.
What is it?
Real-time grooming, I've not really done it, but looking at like what I see online, the process seems mostly the same up until a point. So you want to, I'll say mostly the same. You're still going to start in a grooming program. You're just going to make like clumps. There's a few different ways, I guess. There is a course that, although I can't personally recommend it because I haven't used it, let me find it. So if I search real-time grooming, but I think it's Johan, hair creation for games CGMA. This course, I hear about it all the time. It's a bit pricey if I remember correctly, like 800 quid or something, but the quality of the work is just incredible. So this would be a good one. $299 is actually not that bad, all things considered.
It might be on sale actually with Corona as well.
Yeah, maybe. Granted, this is to register for the course that started February 10th, 2020. So that's gone. But Little Man, really cool. Thanks for doing this. Oh, no problem, man. Yeah, for the real-time grooming, this is probably one of the best tutorials out there from what I've heard. But again, like, I can't personally recommend it because I haven't used it. But the process, from what I'm aware, is you still groom. You might make your entire groom in CG, or you might make like a bunch of different clumps. So this is a free floating clump, and then you bake it onto a card, and then you can duplicate cards around and place them. You will need quite a lot of cards though. You can still use tools like XGen to generate cards, or a Natrix I think would be the best. But yeah, you're gonna best to check with the experts on this, to be honest, because I've not done real-time grooming. It's something I could probably pick up because grooming is grooming. Like, it's still going to be looking for the same shapes, and it's just a case of adapting to tools, really. Adapting to new workflows. But adapting to new workflows is never really too difficult. It just takes some time. Once you're comfortable with one workflow, you can try to figure out others. It's like programming. If you learn one scripting language, you've got the mentality to learn the others. So, right, let's get some materials assigned. So I'm going to assign my Martian hair, which needs to change its name now. Head hair mat. In fact, no, I'm just going to call that hair mat. And I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to create these on screen actually, once I've assigned this. So let's assign the hair mat that we've already made. So, I don't know, that's the Pt.5 hair mat. Cool. Which will obviously immediately break the, there we go. Which will immediately break the viewport preview. And then I'm going to make a new material. So, let's create a PXR Marshner. So this is going to be our peach fuzz material. So I'm just going to call this peach fuzz mat. And I'm going to assign it now, peach fuzz. Okay, so I think most of this will be the same. I'm going to make it super bright. I'm going to make it kind of glowy. In fact, actually, I'm going to add a very subtle amount of melanin. So let's create a Pixar color. Becca, do you want to learn how to do melanin in Renderer? I'm about to go through it.
Not right now.
Alright, cool. PXR hair color. So I can do result diffuse into diffuse color. I can do result TRT into specular color TRT. This is the secondary reflections, that's your main hair color. And result TT, which is your transmission, that's the color of the hair as it goes through. The reason that there's not an output for specular color is because that's always black and white anyway, so you don't really need this to tell you. And then this just gives me regular melanin controls, so I can set this to be like super low. It's like 0.5, so it's not going to be perfectly white, but it's going to have just a hint of color, and we'll see if that works. That might be interesting. I'm going to save. And then obviously the peach fuzz isn't going to look right, and this is the first render. Peach fuzz is one of the hardest grooms to kind of get right through viewport because it just doesn't look the same. Like there's almost no similarity in some cases to how it looks in viewport and how it looks in render. We'll also find we don't really see it on most of the face. We'll just see it. Like you can see it in here. It's definitely a bit too thick, maybe. Needs more flow variation as well. But on the ears, it might show up quite nicely. We're actually getting away with the stuff around the eyes. Maybe it's just too low resolution of a render. Mouth needs fixing. Bottom of the nose needs it removing as well, because that doesn't visually work that well. So as I said, like we'll be ending the stream pretty soon, because it's already been 2 hours. So if anyone's got any questions, please ask now, or as soon as you hear this. I know there's a bit of a delay. And then I can kind of spend some time to kind of go through that stuff. If not, then I'll be heading off in, let's say, 10 minutes. So 10 past 10 in the bottom right corner of my screen. This is too long. I think the peach fuzz is too long on this guy. Kind of like how it looks here. It's pretty subtle. I mean, peach fuzz is always going to be super subtle. If your peach fuzz is really visible like this, it's too much. This is working quite nicely, actually. I think I need some more that are doing like loops, like little coils. But, you know, just to get something there. Maybe I need to start rendering higher res now. I also really want to go in and add some actual texture to the eyes, because currently the eye texture is just a ramp, like a circle ramp. It'd be nice to add some actual detail. Well, not necessarily detail, just something to make it more interesting. And the baby hair, I need to make the baby hair thicker, it's too thin. The blend is kind of working though. It's actually hard to see through streaming quality. Okay. What I'll do, I'll put up a render on my Facebook of like a high res. I'll render like a QHD or something. If I zoom in really close, you might be able to see something, like these little grey lines. If not, maybe when YouTube uploads the final result, maybe it's higher res. I don't know.
Can you upload a link even to the...
Can I upload a link?
Yeah, like publish it somewhere?
Well, I've not been recording locally. So it relies on YouTube's quality.
No, I mean like, if they're wanting to look at the render.
Oh, well I could pin a comment maybe with like a link to the hair. I'm not too fond of the strays in this area anymore. This is looking a bit flat. What?
Oh, where's the peach fuzz?
Oh, peach fuzz is super subtle. Like got this here, a little bit on the sides.
Yeah, I see.
But that's the point of it, is to be subtle. I'm gonna increase the width of the baby hair. What here? Yeah. I've actually got them. They're way too thin. Yeah, so I'm gonna render that now. So let's go into baby hair. Primitives. And let's set the width. Let's go only a little bit thinner than the actual hair itself. And then render that again. Enderman. So we're now getting to the refinement stage of grooming. Obviously, we still got one more groom to create, which is the stray clumps groom, where we get actual full control over the shapes. That will take some time though. I think there'll be probably like at least one more stream between now and creating that, because I do want to do quite a lot more refinement. Obviously next stream will be on Thursday around the same time as today. So I do want to kind of get a bit of a schedule so that I get I get my free evenings, so I'm not I'm not gonna overdo this and then give up. So yeah, the next one will be on Thursday, and then Saturday after that, and then I think it'll be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because those days to me make the most sense. Brilliant. So I had like a really small tileable micro surface map onto the displacement. Might actually have some. If I go into where's my asset library? It's gonna let it render while off screen I'm looking. Yeah, there we go, Becca. So it's got like baby hairs and stuff.
Yeah.
I like it's got like a little soul patch because of the peach fuzz.
Yeah.
So let's go into, where is it? This PC. Excuse me. Come on, Quita. He's starting to look alright. Is that a black surface? Yeah, that would work. I wonder if RenderMan can read PSDs. Okay, so I'm going to leave the stream here. I'll wait 2 minutes if anyone wants to ask any questions. In the next stream, I'll probably set up a little bit of microsurface detail on the skin, just so we have something of interest to kind of break up these perfect reflections. Nothing major, like it is going to be super subtle. I'm also going to start increasing the render size, I think, just so I can actually get in and see these details. We need to fix this. Okay, so let's do a quick list of things to fix. I'm going to render from the back while we do this. I got a feeling this isn't going to look that good yet, so let's preview that. So, pretty subtle difference between those two, but differences will get more and more subtle as time goes on. I should have probably lined up some cameras, but we can see how this used to be super sharp. There wasn't really much breakup, and now we've got a little bit more breakup. We got some extra baby hairs in here. This silhouette's changed a little bit. The general strays around the head have changed just a tiny bit. We've got peach fuzz groom now. Is there any change on the... Hard to tell if it's a distance thing, to be honest. But yeah, so it's all been like kind of small fixes today. We'll see how the back of the head looks as well. And again, we've got a render of the back. So this is what the back used to look like at the start of the stream, and then we'll see what this looks like. To me, it looks like the strays are a lot better in this hair now. But yeah, so looking at this now, the notes that I'd give myself, I still need to remove the texture from here, but I actually kind of like the shape it gives. The eyebrows are cheated quite a lot at the moment, because you do have like these here, which look super nice, but that's actually a texture on the skin, it's not the groom itself. It must feel like caterpillar-like. Does this feel caterpillar-like to you, Becca?
Mm.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. But yeah, so we've got peach fuzz, which so let's go through notes one groom at a time. So peach fuzz. To me, I want to remove them off this section of nose because it's deep in shadow. Maybe I can remove the a little bit of the secondary reflection, because what that will do is make them so they're less visible from most angles. If they're transmission only, then you'll primarily get them on the silhouette. The lighting's not ideal, really. We should put a light behind him to see this stuff. But peach fuzz is supposed to be subtle. But yeah, so remove some of this stuff in the shadow area or change the shader. Add some more in the bridge of the nose to like kind of break up that line. Remove them from the lip because they're not supposed to be there. Maybe render with a different background to check these. Reduce the length of the hair here, increase the length of the hair on the cheeks, and probably on the upper lip as well. Then this I haven't figured out entirely what I want to do with it yet. These clumps feel a bit too tight, like the hairs are just a bit too smooth. Adding a little bit of high frequency noise will help break that up. I want to do a percentage of the hairs that aren't clumping, but we'll figure out how to do that at some other point. The silhouette's reading better now that I've fixed the strays, but it's still not quite what I want. I want a bit more of a wobble to some of these, like this long straight hair. It'd be nice to have like just a little bit of like an S bend or like a B bend in that. Looking at the back, still obviously not done. Strays have improved a lot. They're crossing over a lot more now. Increasing the length back here helps quite a lot as well, because this feels now a bit more substantial. Not happy with the sides yet though, so we need to fix that. We do have some peach fuzz visible here, which is kind of cool, but got quite a lot I need to do with that. I also need to add some surface to the skin. This back section needs more flow variation for sure. It's just so flat and boring at the moment. But that's something we can get to at a different point. These clumps feel a bit too tight, a bit too kind of... It still has that straw feeling to it. Like it's not as bad as it was. Like if I go to here, so this is what it used to be. So it just feels a bit more straw-like, but it's still not perfect. The clumps need to be opened up more. Maybe a little bit more noise on the actual hairs themselves, or a percentage of the hairs not clumping will help for sure. This clump is less troublesome than it was, but now it's intersecting, so I need to fix that intersection. I do like the silhouette we've got back here. I quite like the way the strays are working, so I need to try not to change the seed too much for the strays, or change the seed at all for that. Little man, what computer specs do you have? I'm using, so obviously this isn't a GPU render, but for GPU I've got an RTX 2070 Super, so it's not like a super powerful card. It's good enough to get by, but I don't really use GPU renderers, so it's not that important to me. For RAM, I have 64 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM, and for the CPU, I've got a Ryzen 9 3950X, so the 16 core 32 thread version. I'll say version, the 16 core 32 thread CPU. That's the main specs. In terms of the hard drive, I'm actually just running like old optical hard drives for most of it. My operating system's not on optical, but all my other stuff is, which isn't ideal, but it was cheap and I was already spending close to £3,000 on my setup, so I didn't want to really spend much more, so I tried to save a bit of money on hard drives. Not necessarily the best thing to do, but it works. They will be upgraded though, for sure, because loading maps and stuff is quite slow sometimes. Granted, it's not the end of the world, and I don't do enough heavy work that relies on anything other than RAM to really warrant having a really fancy hard drive setup. But yeah, I have a lot of RAM. I could get more, but 64 gigabyte is more than enough for what I use on a day-to-day basis. And CPU is where most of the money went, to be honest. Just because I use RenderMan primarily. Historically I've been a V-Ray guy, but I've not used V-Ray now for like 2 years. So I've kind of switched my main to being RenderMan, which is primarily CPU. You can use GPU as well, but I prefer not to. But yeah, so that's the general specs on the setup. I'm also using 2 monitors. The main monitor, the one that you guys are seeing, is a BenQ. It's a Pt.5 PD2500Q. It's not very high end, but it is color correct, which is what matters. And my right monitor is just a really cheap Asus that I bought from someone I used to work with at NPC. Literally like £50 old gaming monitor, but it's enough for me to put all my reference on. I don't need super color correct reference, and if I do, I just drag it over to the left screen. But yeah, any other questions before I head off, or is that everything? I think this bit feels a bit too flat. It'd be nice to get a little bit more of a roundness to this, maybe following closer to what this stray hair is doing. Kind of ramp it up a little bit. It currently has almost like a little dent actually, rather than a bulge. But yeah, for the most part this is working. It's just the clumps are too... oh, that's one of the things it's doing it. I can fix that now. Okay, so something I've just noticed is that the clump density for clump 2s on the hair is just too uniform. That's one of the things that's causing some issues, so let's check this. If it wants to load. Now would be a really bad time to crash. But no, it wouldn't, because I've only just saved. I think mine has crashed though. Yeah, Maya's dead. Alright, that's a good time to end the stream anyway. We'll continue working on everything. What I was going to say though is that the back of the hair, the back of the hair, the clumps are too uniform, like the thickness of them. So adding a bit of randomization to that will help quite a lot. That's one of the reasons it feels kind of straw-like. It's because straw tends to be quite consistent as well. Thanks for sharing. Looking forward to the clump strays. We'll get to that. Maybe not in the next session. The next session will be kind of finishing up what we've got here. Well, not finishing, because no groom's ever finished, but just refining it, and then the session after that will be the stray clumps. So I think another 4 hours of grooming, and then we'll put it down. That would bring the total to like 2 days worth of work. So if it puts in perspective how long we spend on stuff, so I'm by no means a special groomer. This so far is about 9 hours work, and I could spend much longer than that on professional grooms. So if this is a day's setup, everyone knows that grooms last longer than a day in industry. So that's the level of kind of the number of passes that we do on stuff. Sometimes it's pretty intense. Are you familiar with hair simulation? Yes and no. I used to know how to do it. It's been a very long time since I last did it. So, but people have asked me about hair simulation before. There's a couple of people I've walked through it, but it's not something I'm going to cover in a live stream, just because it's not my area. I'm an assets guy. I don't like doing, like I can animate barely, but it's just not something I like to do. I prefer to do stationary objects, get them looking nice, and then leave any kind of movement to the experts, because animation and simulation are both such specialist fields. But yeah, so I won't be touching that in the live streams. But yeah, alright, well I'm going to call the stream off here, guys. But hope everyone's benefited from this, and yeah, I'll do another stream on Thursday, 8 o'clock in UK time, so 8 GMT. And yeah, cool. See you guys around. Bye.